Good evening, viewers. Welcome to the Face Off, WBS TV. Peter Kibazo. Friday night. Yes, it is an end of the week, and yes, we are closing off the week. Today is 25th? No. Today is actually 15th?
15th.
Yes, 15th. Charles was believing it is actually 25th.
No, I couldn't believe that.
It is 15th of August, midway, the 8th month of the year. A friend of mine tells me it is almost the planting season. I'm not very knowledgeable in that area. With me, Charles Romshana. Welcome, Charles.
The Almighty God is great.
We should be joined by David Pulkov very shortly. Ibrahim Semujunganda should be here. He isn't yet here as well, but they will join us as of and when they arrive. We will roll. Viewers, this week, one of those things that we have discussed back and forth differently, it's a pain that David is not yet seated here. He should have given us the preamble to the show, because David with the African Leadership Institute, I think 3 or 4 times, did a survey into Parliament and the behavior of members of Parliament, having had his experience there, having done his work there as well, as a member of Parliament, as a minister. That survey told us how many members of Parliament actually come to Parliament. How many members of Parliament open their mouths when they are in the plenary. In addition to that, by the time the survey phased out, the African Leadership Institute Parliamentary Scorecard phased out, he had even gone to the committees and assessed how many of them even add value to the committees of Parliament, because they will often say that they do their business in the committees of Parliament. How many of them actually do the business in the committees of Parliament? That survey went the full distance. And even said how many of them come back to the constituency to add any value, to get feedback, to do their work. I know that most members of Parliament were irate with that survey and they were angry. This week, the Daily Monitor, in yet another survey that they have published, indicates how many members of Parliament actually outrightly dodge Parliament, both committees and the plenary. And my question to Charles, my production team is asking, is Parliament on a collapse? Is it a deathbed for Parliament? Charles, you haven't had your leg in Parliament at all.
We are the judges.
The empty center point is David Pulkov's point. He should be joining us. We are leaving it empty so that you know he isn't yet seated. But Charles, why do you think that members of Parliament are at this level? I saw that out of an expected 100 sittings of a particular member of Parliament, they had done 10 out of a possible 100. Another one out of a possible 80 sittings of their committee. They had done a lot. My friend Nabila, for example, did a whooping 19 and she was a star. She was a star. Out of 80 sittings of her committee, she had done 19.
Out of 80.
Out of 80.
And she is the star.
She was a star. That is at committee level. My friend Ibra, that is not here, in a particular session, out of a possible 100, I think, he had done 18 or thereabouts. And he's very visible. You see him, you always see him in Parliament. But he's there. Then there are members of Parliament that performed at 0 rate, both plenary and committee. Ministers were pathetic. Ministers who are also members of Parliament were pathetic. Pathetic. If there are no minuses, they would get minuses if there were minuses. They are not in committees, they are not. And it's reasonable, possibly because they are serving as ministers. Among the top performers, interesting, not surprising, is the Prime Minister. I don't know, but the Prime Minister, General Moses Ali, are among the highest performers in that Parliament. So Charles, what is happening to Parliament?
When we were in the Constituent Assembly, we designed a system of decision making. So Parliament is part is part of the whole. Is not the whole in the decision-making process. Is part of the whole, because we are looking at how do you arrive at the national consensus. When is a decision made and it is seen to be a national decision, a decision of the masses. And it was done at two levels. One is the local government level, i.e. the areas in the periphery. The districts, of course we now haven't had the regional tier, so decisions at the district level would be done at the municipal level, would be done at the LC3 level, the councils, and would be done at the district level. And at the district level it would be the council and then the executive of the chairman, what you would call the secretaries of the ministers of the chairman of LC5. So that's a decision at the district level. Now then at a decision at the national level, it would be done at cabinet. So we define cabinet as composed of the president and a specific number of ministers appointed by the president, approved by parliament. So there is a cabinet, the president is part of a cabinet, and but what do you see now? You run a risk of having the president as cabinet. Then you have parliament. Parliament, you are supposed to have a decision of parliament either on what has come from cabinet in terms of bills, in terms of policies, etc., or if like the members moved their own bills or proposed motions, moved motions on a number of issues. So then parliament has another larger role it plays, that it is like, you've seen press conferences.
Yes.
Yes. So on the plenary is where you raise an issue of national importance. So you have a gallery, and the gallery is the press. So if you have been monitoring the life of this parliament, they have even moved government to ensure that they are covered live on UBC, in the media. And therefore, parliament has another larger role it plays, for the member of parliament is able to communicate to his population, to his voters, and to account to the country that he is doing work. Now all this was destroyed. The decision-making process is done at the caucus level. So the chairman of the caucus, his mindset becomes the decision of the caucus, and therefore overrides the parliament. Takes precedence over the decision of the parliament. A good example is that you have more than 200 members of parliament signing that this bill be returned, the anti-homosexual and homo bill be returned. But the chairman of the NRM, the president, calls the caucus and tells them, look, there is a snake in the pot, go through about it. Now all of them have fizzled, they have evaporated like dew. So what is the effect on their morale? In other words, if you came up and you gave a view contrary to what was discussed and agreed in the caucus, then they would fight you, and you know they have 1 year to go into primaries. And you can't afford to contradict the leadership of your political organization. So one, they are demoralized. They are demoralized because they are now denied of a platform on how to communicate directly to the country, because that's what makes a politician anyway. You can talk about the Honorable Bangamo, you can talk about Nekion, you can talk about many others, because they used the floor of parliament to communicate, to converse with the population. Now, you cannot do it on your own. If you did it contrary to what has been decided by caucus, and you see caucus is also done indoors. It's behind, it's off camera, and the politician would always want to be on camera. So that is denied. Therefore, the only duty that is remaining of them is to come to vote. And yes, those members of the opposition are active, because when they are in the park and are fighting corruption, then they are making a point. The media captures them. So they will always want to be where the media can capture them, because it's an important tool.
They as well, interestingly, in this particular report, they as well are portrayed as absent.
Oh, yeah,
they are not in parliament.
Yeah, I'm talking about to those who have areas that are of less interest to the media. You won't have them, because now the bulk of the NRMs are there for voting, and it must be a contentious matter. Then they are mobilized to come and vote, and they know there are many who are above that, but there is nowhere they can protest. So the only way they can protest is not to attend. They go and attend to their business.
David,
yeah,
you had opportunity at the African Leadership Institute. One, I will ask, what became of that parliamentary scorecard? Why did you abdicate?
Two things. One, the donors, you remember when we came in, we just hit it like a twin tower, okay, from the top. Because for us, we said the bottleneck is at the top of the bottle. It's a leadership question. So when leaders take informed decisions, when leaders take their job seriously and take the right decisions, then the outcome, the well-being of citizens will be much better. But if institution like Parliament is bought, is co-opted, is compromised, then the interests of the people they represent will be shortchanged. So we came up with a project called the Scorecard, which was trying to help Wananchi to police, to become policemen of their own representatives, their own MPs, policing members of Parliament. And therefore, we came from the point of view of Wananchi, on whose behalf were we intervening as civil society. So this was not a project of Parliament of Uganda. Yes. It was not a project of government of Uganda. This was, we're doing it on behalf of the people of Uganda. So we were not neutral because we had a side. The side we had was the people of Uganda, the voters. So we wanted the voters to take back their parliament because their parliament was being hijacked by personal interests of the executive, which is out to compromise their representatives. So instead of the representative
which
of the people,
executive Charles thinks is actually reduced into the person of the president?
By and large, because he's the one who is the appointing authority of that cabinet, and they serve at his pleasure. And he can appoint you, he can disappoint you. And therefore, those are his bag boys and bag girls whom he uses.
Well, a minister is an assistant to the president.
I hear you. I hear you. So that is what the executive branch of government is. But then in order to counterbalance the executive branch, that's why then people's representatives, ordinarily it should be all the people of Uganda should be in the old days of the Greek cities. They all used to come and legislate. But of course, as population grew and sophistication of government came up, so the idea of representative democracy came in. So that you need to send your representative to that organ, which will now be a nyampara, a supervisor of the executive. Now, the executive in Uganda has thrown a bone to the watchdog. And they are busy struggling over these bonds. And so the thieves have gone to Treasury, to Bank of Uganda, and they have taken the money. They come back and say, you pass this supplementary in retrospect, after they have spent the money. So meanwhile, for them, they are busy with the magical 5 million, the magical 4 million per sub-county, the magical this. So even to change the constitution, some 5 million. Even to kill the domestic relations bill or divorce and what, 5 million. Go out there and kill it from there. Let it not come here. So there's something happening. So what am I saying? This time when it came to 9th Parliament, the donor wanted us to sign an MOU with the Parliament. Because when we took Parliament by storm, Parliament grudgingly came to accept the scorecard.
Yes.
But a majority of them were non-performers. 140 or so were non-performers, were in the NRM caucus. They even raised the issue in the caucus twice. One time, even President Museveni promised in the caucus, when I saw the minutes of the caucus, he had even promised to them to bring Pulkol to explain here. Okay? So they even put a Bahati committee, okay, to investigate our methodology. And they found nothing. They didn't make any recommendations. It was funded by the donor. So now this time round, when the donor insisted that AFLI signs an MOU with Parliament, so the Parliamentary Commission has found excuse after excuse. Even when they have sent us a draft and we have sent our comments, for some reason they have refused to sign the Memorandum of Understanding. So instead, we get whispers that you people, you don't monitor individuals. You monitor the institution of Parliament, not the individuals. But then we said it's not the Parliament, the House of Parliament, which came for our votes. It is individual MPs who hung their photographs, who came to campaign, who promised to become spokespersons of the ordinary people. Because the Constitution is very clear. The Constitution says this number representing directly elected, representing constituencies. This
So,
number. So what has happened is that they have refused to sign the MOU. We have been collecting data, and we have not published that data. Recently, the NGO Forum, okay, contracted us to do to assess the 3 years of the 9th Parliament. We have submitted a report to the NGO Forum, okay, where we have looked at the institution of Parliament. Where did they serve the citizens of Uganda better? Where did they let down the citizens of Uganda? So that report is yet to be released by the Uganda NGO Forum. But we have come with different parameters for assessing the institution of Parliament. David, that report will come soon.
David, a candid question.
Yes.
A candid question. Because I've seen the report, now I know where it comes from, or the bits of the stolen report that have been published. And
Parliament is doing its own thing also.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you have members of Parliament
Mm-hmm.
that are largely not present. Charles says they are demoralized. He thinks that the caucus has taken the roles of Parliament.
And by the way, it's more attended than Parliament.
Yes. People will attend the caucus. People will go to Chankwanzi. If you need quorum, if Parliament needed to sit, all they would do is change the rules and allow themselves to sit as Parliament in Chankwanzi. They would have caucus in Chankwanzi. Change the rule and allow yourselves to sit in State House in Entebbe, like they did in this week, like they sat in the caucus. They would have quorum. Why don't we have one quorum for the plenary? Why aren't people attending the committee business? Because previously, when you published your report, the impression was we are not in the plenary, but at least for committee business, we are there.
Yes, and we still have all the committee reports, the committee Hansards of the 8th Parliament, because we have been recording voice verbatim all the committee reports except where the public is not accepted, like the Business Committee of Parliament, like Appointments Vetting Committee. Those ones the public is not invited. But all the other committees where the public is invited, we have been recording verbatim, and then we have produced a Hansard for each committee for the entire 8th Parliament. But for the 9th Parliament, yes, we have been recording, but we have not been able to publish because then you need those resources which the donors is conditioning to signing an MOU. And then individuals don't want to be monitored, so they sabotage. Now, when you come down to what Parliament has been doing, Parliament says they can monitor themselves. That's where they are asking now the clerks of the committees to submit attendance lists. That's where they are trying to compile their own. But whether Parliament can really monitor itself and police itself, and you divorce citizens who are the real owners of this Parliament from this whole monitoring process, is something to be questioned. For me, as part of AFLI Board of Trustees now, so I think this has vindicated us. It means people have seen when citizens monitor Parliament, and they have also seen a situation where nobody monitors Parliament, and Parliament tries to monitor itself. So I think it is time to get back and for people to demand.
What is the problem?
What I found the problem was when we hit first, absentee was really enormous. But the moment the first scorecard was released, attendance went up. But again, towards the last year of the campaign, it went down. So the scorecard managed to bring MPs to work. Okay? Now, what was the problem? The excuses they gave was that, I was attending conference, we the women leaders were first timers, so we've been in a number of workshops, and then we're traveling out abroad to land a job. Now that is over. Others said, I've been in court because of the court petitions, and now that is over, you're going to see me. And so they gave all kinds of flimsy excuses. Others said I was in hospital and so forth. Others said he had gone out to urinate. But how can you be absent? At that time, the first time was 89 sittings. And you find on average, how many? Like if you find somebody sits at 10 times. But of course, the problem also is the administration of Parliament.
Actually, this time I think out of 80 sittings, the general average is about 13.
Oh my God, you can see now. And yet they are paid. So the problem is that this Parliament, like the 8th Parliament, they consolidated their pay. At the time of the previous parliaments, whether at independence or at NRC, you were paid according to the days you sit. There was sitting allowance. But these ones are clever. They have consolidated their package. Whether you attend or you don't, the money goes to your account.
Pause there.
Now, then secondly, they have taken more debts. So their salaries,
like all of us have.
Yes, their salaries are all taken by debt collectors. So they depend on hunting in Chikubo, in conferences, where there's transfer refund, where there's accommodation, so they hunt for a living because the rest of the pay, including your mileage allowance going to home, has already been consolidated and it is going to the other money lender on
Charles.
Kampala Road, on Parliamentary Road.
Charles, I have Chris Kahuma who tells me, Peter, I think the solution is in downsizing Parliament. If you had a smaller Parliament, you would have better attendance. But if I sit in a Parliament of 300 people, and the most I can have in a week is 2 minutes to stand on a point of information, really, what value do I add? Why do I need to get there? After all, decisions are made by proclamation. So what do I need to be there? I think we need to downsize Parliament. That's Chris Kahuma.
You know, there are, even with its larger, with its oversize, there are times when they have even failed to have where to sit. When matters have been contentious and mainly on the side of government, like on these oil bills, you remember? Many of them were mobilized to come and vote. And indeed, when government mobilizes them, they attend. And you've seen when they attend, they even fail to have where to sit. You find the entire cabinet is there and members have been properly mobilized. They have a good system. You remember when we had a discussion on Radio Simba with Rumumba, Honorable Rumumba, she was telling us NRM MPs are penalized for not attending, that there is a way they track them, and you must explain if you don't attend a number of times. Even the law is very clear, if you absent yourself from a certain number of sittings, you
15 sittings.
Yeah, you even lose your seat.
Your seat.
So in other words, there are mechanisms on how they can be brought to book, there are mechanisms on how they can be compared, and how they can be negative, how they can be motivated to attend. But these are not implemented. Two, the member of parliament becomes attendance becomes extremely very relevant if your constituency are the voters. But in the current situation, the constituency of the member of parliament are not the voters. It is the president, the one who is in control of the state. That is why when he invites them to Wachitura, they are there in numbers. If he invites them to Chisozi, they are there in numbers. If it is Chankwanzi, there is overflow. If it is Entebbe, there is overflow. If he wants them to go and tour farms, when he was still doing that program, they overflow. If there are occasions when he wants them, state functions, they overflow. But when it comes to the house, they can no longer pray to the gallery, and therefore they don't have. Now look at the budget process, for instance. You remember the decision was that the budget be made by the caucus, and I think it was given to Tashobia. Now, so now when the parliament is beginning to scrutinize the budget, there is already a crisis. If you have been following the media, Honorable Mama Mbabas had to clash with his technocrats when they were demanding for movement. I think it's the law and justice sector. And these fellows were showing the areas of deficiencies, the deficiency gaps. Before one of my members was telling them, no, this budget we have is a representation
of your
cabinet. Yeah, therefore you technical people cannot come here to change it, and you must shut up. And Tashobia now of the NRM caucus, who should have done this with Honorable Mambabas and the other ministers, comes up to say, no, you civil servants. In other words, what does it show you to it? What does it show to you? It shows to you that some members were not involved into this. It is their own change. In other words, there is a system failure. There was no NRM system. There is no way you can steal 30 billion shillings like this Ghost Road. And you have a president coming to flag a road, to Katosi. You bring him to flag it when you already have fake insurance bonds, etc.
No, the contractor is fake. The company didn't
Very
exist.
many things are fake.
But Charles, that is not a first really in Uganda.
What I'm trying to say,
I don't know.
With the way,
David and Charles,
what's the role of Parliament?
you were
the
still in
systems-
what
intelligence
is the role of
when we had
Parliament?
Westmontland Asia that didn't exist and came
Listen,
and
So
I
if the systems-
gave a report.
Can
There's
I
no
finish my
question
point?
about this. Okay, go ahead.
If the systems were allowed to function, there is no way Mr. Kaitham Hakan would sign a check would authorize Bank of Uganda to transfer more than 30 billion shillings to someone's account and it evaporates. There is no way. But systems have collapsed and therefore it's a general problem. It's a cancer that has eaten through the entire the body.
So you are saying the problem is not Parliament. The problem is generally a systemic
we don't have a Parliament
problem.
The entire system, the entire decision-making system collapsed. No. It's now in the hands of an individual and some few elements in the cabinet.
Just one moment. Viewers, we will allow you to give an input into the show today. We'll display our numbers and then turn down the volume of your set, call into the show, give an opinion to David and Charles. Yes, David.
So I think besides the problem we have enumerated, which means the executive wants to create its carbon copies in Parliament, like HIV/AIDS, which creates its own carbon copies and it's the body politic of our country. Now, those thieves in the executive who don't want to be checked, those who have motives to stay forever, who don't want supervision, and who don't want their decisions to be contradicted, are the ones who say they don't mind even if this Parliament sleeps, so long as they wake up to vote. So they are creating a different type of Parliament than the one the Constitution anticipated.
David, can I differ with you?
Yes, I want to qualify.
Just hold on there. You see, as a student of democracy and governance, the reason we put checks and balances in place is because the assumption naturally is the id and ego of the individual. Your ego will want to have everything. You will want to collect everything towards yourself. Systems of state are put in place to be able to check you. We understand the executive will want all powers. A president will want to have everything. But we have created a parliament, we have created a legislature which should be able to counterbalance the president. You have created the judiciary which should be able to counterbalance the president.
And the legislature.
Yes. Now this legislature is abdicating its job.
That's the
and
point.
We want to blame the executive
and I want to
for
say,
the legislature
how did they come to abdicate their job? Two things. One, the voter, who's their boss of the MPs, is far away from Parliament. The scene of crime of these MPs is in Parliament. Behind closed door is in cabinet, those who are ministers and their MPs. So the voter has no opportunity of knowing what takes place inside Parliament. So these individuals have taken advantage of that ignorance and that disconnect between the arena where they perform called Parliament and where the voter is. The second thing is that the clever fools, I call that clever fools, I'm not mincing my words, in the executive, who think they are acting clever, when actually now these actions are showing that somebody is foolishly trying to compromise the people's representatives and use them as his own representatives in Parliament. And these are very heavy words. You can take me on this. You can take me on this because the Constitution anticipates a vibrant people's representative. When we elect our MP, he is our spokesperson, like you have Ankunda for the UPDF, like you have Enang for the police. So the only spokespersons we have for each constituency, who speak for us when the budget is being allocated, who speaks for us when our rights are trampled upon by any individual or departments of government. It is our MPs. Now, when you turn these people's representatives into your own representatives, then you are actually acting foolish according to the Constitution. But also, you are protecting your selfish interests. And because of your selfish interests, because of your parochialism, because of your personal interest to stay in power, therefore, you now behave a rent-seeking behavior of our government. It rents MPs, okay? And therefore, changes roles. So the allegiance shifts to the executive instead of to the citizens.
You see, David, where
I'm very
my
careful about
questions
what I'm
are
saying.
here is none of what you're saying wasn't anticipated by the framers of the Constitution. They actually anticipated that someone would want to pay the rent.
Let me give
they
you.
anticipated that someone seated in the executive chair would want to grab the power.
That's why in the CA where I was, we gave Parliament more powers, including even to impeach a president, including to censor ministers.
I want to hear the but.
Now, the but here is that the parliament is also now complaining like us. Why are they not using those powers
Can I come in?
that are in the
Viewers,
constitution?
let me take a break, and when I return from the break, I'll hear from Charles. Both Charles and David had the privilege of sitting in the Constituent Assembly. They were supposed to create the shock absorbers for this system. Today, David is crying, lo and behold, the executive or the chief executive has grabbed the powers of parliament. But the legislature was crafted as one of the most powerful hands in this country. What became of the legislature? Where did they drop their teeth? Should we just send them home? Should we cut the size of parliament? What do we do to be able to immunize them against the shock of the executive? What do we do to give them teeth to be able to bite? Don't go away.